This conference will now be recorded.
Hello, everybody. This is Frank Gray, broker owner of Abbey Realty, and I'm very excited to be sharing today the first of 11 or 12 teaching sessions I'm going to share this year, 2020, on the subject of mindset. And just very quickly, why we're taking this much time to talk about one single issue. And it's simply that throughout my real estate career, I have benchmarked the practices of the top agents in the business, but at the same time that I'm trying to identify the key traits and strategies and thought processes that drive people to the highest levels of production, I'm also looking at the other end of the spectrum, at agents who try really hard but just fail to gain any traction in this business. Most of them don't make it at all. Others perhaps have some success. They do just enough to stay in the business, but never enough to fund their aspirations, certainly never achieving what they had hoped when they got their real estate license and launched a career in real estate sales. What I have observed about those highest producers and those who struggle is that they think about themselves differently. They have a different mindset, a different grid, a mental grid from which they view the world, their career, and themselves. And it's that mindset, that pattern of beliefs, which either drives productive behavior or keeps people mired in unproductive behavior. So far from being some trip into airy fairyland when we talk about mindset, I think this is probably the most practical subject that we can talk about in terms of pulling people out of the mire of low productivity and putting them on the path to becoming a top producing agent. I'm not alone in focusing on the power of mindset to change lives. No less than George Bernard Shaw said, "Progress is impossible without change." And those who cannot change their minds cannot change anything. In other words, it's all about changing your mind. And that's exactly what we're going for in this class and in this series is mind transformation. If you can change the way you think, then you will change the way you feel and you will change the way you act. And it's those actions, it's behavioral differences over time that make the difference in your business, but it all starts with the way you think. So we're going to follow down this path that George Bernard Shaw said is the key to productive change. And here's the specific issue that we're going to be focusing on in today's class. Are some people born to greatness while others are doomed to mediocrity? In other words, our success in life or our failures are due completely to external factors. It's not within our control. We're either born with certain talents and attributes, perhaps born into an environment of success, or we're born with just too many strikes against us. We didn't get the physical attributes, the mental acumen that's going to allow us to achieve at the highest levels. Essentially, what we're saying is, are your genes your destiny? Is DNA your destiny? Or do you have influence over the trajectory of your career and your life? That's the issue that we're going to be looking at today. And it's important because for many, many centuries, there's been a debate about these issues. In the 1700s and 1800s, there was a new field of science developed called phrenology, where criminologists attempted to predict which people would become upright tax-paying citizens and those which were most likely to enter into a life of crime because of moral ambiguity. And they attempted to make these predictions based upon physical characteristics such as the shape of a person's head. Believe it or not, there were whole catalogs of illustrations and photographs provided to help school teachers and public officials and police officers identify those most likely to commit crimes. For example, these phrenologists determined that those who have pointy heads have superior intelligence. Perhaps that's why the movies always predict aliens as having these long, skinny heads, if they're smart enough to come all the way to the planet Earth in their super warp time machines. But those with bulging foreheads or heavy eyebrows, deep eye sockets, they were thought to have criminal tendencies. Now, the whole field of phrenology has been completely discredited in the last 100+ years. However, this tendency to think that physical characteristics and attributes are what put persons on the path to success or failure continues in our day. But today, it's not so focused on head shape as it is on DNA. Genetic predispositions which incline people towards success or failure in certain areas. In other words, certain people are born, they're gifted in math or science, and they are destined for success, perhaps working for NASA or one of the research labs. Other people are born with great communication skills. It's in their DNA, and so they may go on to be teachers or ministers or a TV talk show host, that type of thing. The idea, again, is the same as phrenology, that your DNA is your destiny. Now, that's not the entire story, of course. Throughout history, there have been those who pushed back against this idea that DNA is destiny, which that whole school of thought we can describe as nature. Our genetics determine our behavior, our personality traits and abilities are in our nature. The opposite side of that, the pushback, is no, it's not what you're born with, it's the environment that you're brought up in. And we call this side of the debate nurture. Our environment, upbringing, and life experiences determine our behavior. We are nurtured to behave in certain ways. And there have been countless studies over the years to back up the nurture position, taking students, young children from all different backgrounds, different socioeconomic levels, different races, and then giving them the exact same environment, the same education, supportive teachers, supportive coaches. And we have seen in study after study that students have the same general outcomes. Obviously, there's variation with any population group, but the same general outcomes, and typically at a very high performance level, because they had the correct nurturing environment. So I want you to think for a moment on which side of this you tend to come down. Is it our DNA which forms our destiny, or do we pretty much all start in the same place and it's our environment? It's whether we go to good schools and have supportive parents that make the difference and put us on the path of top production. And I want us to look at this from several different angles. First of all, just raw intelligence. Nature would say, although anyone can learn things, actual intelligence is in our DNA and cannot be changed by external factors. This, in fact, was the position of our public schools in America for decades, particularly throughout the 20th century or the 1900s. It was believed that through standardized testing, students with potential to learn, the ability to learn at the highest levels, would be slotted into these gifted and talented classes very early in life, while those who didn't have that potential would be put either in remedial or standardized classes. And teachers and educational professionals would say everybody can learn different levels, you can learn something, but the potential of what you can learn is limited by your DNA. So DNA is destiny. Nurture. Any child who's raised in a supportive environment where they are challenged to learn and grow can achieve high levels of intelligence. So this is arguing again against nature, but for environment. What about musical abilities? This is one where nature perhaps might come in a little bit stronger. These proponents would say anyone can plink on a piano or pluck a guitar, but true musical prodigies are born with exceptional talent that can never be equaled. Amadeus, Mozart, and Beethoven had innate musical talent that ordinary people could never hope to match, no matter how hard they try. If you haven't seen the movie Amadeus, I highly recommend it. Now, it's ancient as the hills. I think it was made in the 1980s, but it is a brilliant movie, and it tells the story of Amadeus and just this natural gifting that his rival, I think his name was Salieri, just tried so hard to be as good as Amadeus. And no matter how hard he tried, Amadeus, seemingly without practice, would just sit down at the piano and blow everybody away. It absolutely infuriated Salieri, but it supports the position of those who say that musical abilities are innate. Now, what about nurture? Have you noticed that great musicians tend to have parents who were also great musicians? And this is true whether the children are biological or adopted. Learning an instrument from a gifted and committed teacher is what makes great musicians. So it's the environment that you're raised in. Doesn't matter if you're a biological child or adopted child. If you're raised in a family that loves music, gives you lessons by great teachers, and just surrounds yourself in this musical environment of excellence, you have great potential to be a great musician yourself. What about athleticism? Like Robert Redford in The Natural. Some kids are just born to play ball. They're quicker, faster, have better hand-to-eye coordination, and have the ideal height and weight ratios for their chosen sports. Now, some of you may be natural athletes, and you can identify with this. Some of us are not natural athletes, and I can absolutely identify with this. Everything that I ever did in sports came really hard to me. Even though I'm a big guy and I could play basketball on defense and block shots, I just never had the hand-eye coordination that many of my friends had who could shoot those baskets or throw the ball or hit the ball so well. But on the other side, nurture. Did Eli Manning and Peyton Manning really have inborn football genes? Now, obviously, they had something going for them, the hand-to-eye coordination, but were they really that much better than everybody else that out of one family would come two Super Bowl winning National Football League most valuable player quarterbacks? Of course not. The odds against that are just too great. But they were groomed by their father, NFL quarterback Archie Manning, to be top quarterbacks from a very young age. And I've seen the home videos on this. He was coaching them how to be world-class quarterbacks. They were raised in an environment that supported that. Had they been raised in a musical family, they would have been great musicians. Had they been raised in a teaching family, they probably would have been great teachers. And if you need another example of nurture, how about Tiger Woods? You've probably seen the pictures of him on the golf course at 3 years of age. His father totally devoted his life to grooming Tiger Woods to be the greatest golfer in the world. And he did this without any DNA sampling of his son. He had a son. He was determined to make him into a great golfer. And because of that nurturing, supportive environment, Tiger Woods has dominated the world of golf since he came in several years ago. What about sales skills? Nature says some people are just born to sell. They're outgoing, gregarious, persuasive. They can sell ice to Eskimos. Perhaps you know somebody like this. It seems like there's one in every family. But then there's the nurture argument. Monkey see, monkey do. If you're raised in an environment where sales and persuasion are modeled on a daily basis, you're going to absorb it and be good at it. I put in the slide here, ruthfoss.com. People used to make fun of my mother because she was a top producing real estate sales agent, was one of the first to get her name on a .com website. She was the top Century 21 agent in our small town of Joplin, Missouri. She achieved that notoriety in her first year in real estate. She became the top listing agent in Joplin. Then we moved to Houston. She joined Coldwell Banker. In her second year, became the top Coldwell Banker agent in the state of Texas, completely dominated the Champion Forest area of North Houston. I remember coming home from grad school, driving through Champion Forest, and it wasn't like every other sign. It was like 90% of the yard signs in that area had her name on it. By the way, after a great career in real estate sales, she shifted over to the mortgage business, where she became a top loan originator. Now, think about that. I was raised in her family. I went into real estate, although it was a winding path that got me here, no doubt. But I became a top producing real estate sales agent. And then on January 2nd of this year, what did I do? I started a mortgage company. How did that happen? Is it in my DNA? I doubt it. I think I saw it modeled at home. I saw the success my mother had, and that carved a path for me to follow, nature or nurture. Now, what about charisma? Movie stars, politicians, popular ministers, top salespeople, and business leaders are born with a natural charisma that makes them attractive, likable, and excellent communicators. These natural abilities can be identified early in life. As children with charisma organize playground games, become leaders at school, and go on to achieve high status in their chosen occupations. I remember when our son Frankie was just a young toddler, 18 months old, 2 years old. We would drop him off at the church nursery, and then when we would come to pick him up, the teachers would say to us, whenever Frankie arrives, everybody in the room looks at him and then starts doing what he's doing. They just follow him around the room because they want to be involved with whatever he's up to. Now, Frankie wasn't grooming himself for leadership. He was just playing. He was just being a kid. But the other kids seemed to sense that they wanted to be around him, that there was some natural charisma or leadership that attracted them. Now, what about the nurture argument? Remember our President George Bush, delightful fellow George W., but he couldn't talk to save his soul, couldn't string two sentences together in a smooth and articulate manner. But remember his father, George H.W. Bush, again, God bless his soul, dearly departed, but he was the same way. He couldn't talk either. Now, is that genetic? I doubt it. I think it was George W. sitting at the feet of his father, listening to him talk, understanding the difficulty he had in turning thoughts into words, and he just picked up on that rhythm of speech. I do not think it was a coincidence. I think it was the impact of the environment that he was in. So here's my question for you. Which is correct, nature or nurture? Now, I suspect that most of you are saying, well, why do we have to choose? I mean, it's some of both. And I would agree with that to some extent, particularly when it comes to physical characteristics. I am never going to be a professional jockey. Those guys weigh about 110 pounds, and I haven't weighed 110 pounds since the third grade. So it's not in my DNA to have the physical characteristics of a professional jockey. I'll never achieve success in that chosen profession. But when it comes to intelligence, is intelligence dictated? And I'm not talking about people who have true mental disabilities where they're missing genetic material or missing DNA, which absolutely true. That's what happens to people who have mental disabilities. I'm talking about people who have all their chromosomes, who have all their DNA. Are some of them slotted toward genetic greatness when it comes to intelligence? Or is it all in the nurture environment? Do parents and teachers and coaches and siblings and friends have more influence on where you end up? I want to say that whether you choose nature or nurture, you're wrong. I played a little bit of a trick on you there. And again, this is my opinion, but hey, it's my class, so you're going to get a heavy dose of my opinion. I have a great concern about the entire concept of the nature versus nurture debate. And it's because of this reason. Nature and nurture both arise from a fixed mindset. Both assume that your opportunity for success is determined by outside forces, either your DNA or your environment, but you don't have anything to do with either one of those. And so if you achieve some success in life, you have to say, well, I guess I just had a good upbringing, or I guess I was born smart in math, that kind of thing. But what if you're not gifted? with superior physical attributes or a supportive environment. Does that mean you're doomed to failure and mediocrity? I mean, what if I was born on the wrong side of the tracks and I had one parent who abused me and the other one who abandoned me? Does that mean I have no hope in life? There's two mindsets that we're going to get into in this session today. A fixed mindset, which says everything that happens to me in my life is put upon me from outside forces. I am destined to either success or failure in certain areas. Or by contrast, a growth mindset, which doesn't deny the existence of external influences upon our lives, but it says that the dominant determiner of where we end up in life is our own determination, commitment, and hard work to succeed. Now, let me give you an example of this from, well, let's just say from my own life. I have had these statements made to me. First of all, poor reading and writing skills put this guy in remedial English. Do you know who said that to me? Said it to my high school. It was my 9th grade English teacher. I had sat in her class for an entire year, and she had no idea who I was or what I was capable of. I actually had superior reading and writing skills. The very next year after she put me in remedial English, my sophomore year of high school, I founded and published a very popular newspaper on our high school campus. But our teacher was far more concerned with the popular kids in our class and being a cool teacher than she was with noticing and nurturing the talent that was in every student in that classroom. But again, if I was a victim of environment, man, that could have sabotaged me for the rest of my life. Well, my teacher, who's a professional, says I can't read and write. Nurture. How about this one? You can't preach and nobody likes you. That was actually said to me by a group of elders who saw me as a threat. I was the pastor of the church, and they felt like I was getting too much power. So in a power play to get rid of me, they called me in a room and says, "Hey, you can't preach and nobody likes you. Basically, hit the road, Jack. We're done with you." Now, I knew at the moment they said it that it wasn't true. I do have some communication abilities, and generally people like me. Not everybody, of course, but generally people do. But why do you think I remember this statement that was made many years ago to me? Why do I remember what my 9th grade English teacher said to me? Because these things hurt. Because we are influenced by our environment. They are a factor. How about this one? You better try hard at music because you're no good at sports. That was what my mom said to me when I was in 7th grade, and she picked me up from trombone practice, and I told her I didn't want to play the trombone anymore. And I got to tell you, that one has stuck with me my entire life. And I know I'm not very good at sports. If I can't crush people with sheer size and weight, they're probably going to be faster and quicker and more athletic than I am. But that's a pretty crushing statement from your mom. And how about this one from my high school football coach? Gray, you run like a herd of cows. And he was right. Clomp, clomp, clomp. Even in high school, I had a big body and wasn't very athletic, but I was a starter defensive end on our football team, again, because I love sports and I had the size to overcome some of my physical, what I lacked in terms of talent. Now here's one, and I don't want to say this one hurt, because this just happened last week and we've laughed about it a lot. Fat, middle-aged, bald guy. We were in St. Louis visiting my wife's family, and we were sitting around one night talking to Mary's sister, who's recently divorced and is on all the dating sites. And she was telling us how horrible it is that these creepy guys that she finds on the dating sites. And Mary, going along in the conversation, kind of laughs and says, "Yeah, I know, I've seen some of them. They're all fat, middle-aged, bald guys." And I'm sitting there going, "What? I mean, didn't you just describe your husband? I thought you were attracted to fat, middle-aged, bald guys." Anyways, we had a good laugh about it. But these are the kind of things environmentally that can wound people and cause them never to achieve anything in life if they buy into a fixed mindset. If they believe that environment is determinative, that DNA is destiny, if they buy into either one of those, that external factors control their success, then they have no hope of breakthrough. What I say is that nature and nurture don't define you, neither one. Outside forces don't dictate your successes or your failures. You're not the victim of DNA or your family or where you were born or where you went to school or your skin color or native language or your religion or height or weight or who you don't know or how long you've lived here. You are not a victim. And I realize that some of you did not have the natural or nurture advantages that other people do. We all have a starting line that's at different places, but it doesn't matter where you start. That's what I'm saying to you. Your past does not dictate your future. And even if you had to climb your way out of a deep, dark hole to find level ground, now you're there. Today is your day, and you can chart a new course for your life beginning in this moment. But it starts with identifying this lie, this deception, that your life is ruled by these things that have happened to you, or the lack of natural attributes and proficiencies that perhaps you weren't born with. Look at these pictures on the screen. These are people receiving awards for top performance. And I have to tell you, it was people like this that caused me to fall in love with the real estate industry. I was a real estate professional and executive. I was leading regions for a nationally branded franchise organization around the country. I was the guy standing on stage, handing the trophy to top producing agents. And what I absolutely loved, I'd never seen it in my life, was that those people coming across the stage, our top producers, came in every shape, size, sex, color, Ivy League education, state university education, community college education, no education, high school dropout. It absolutely did not matter. All these external factors where we tend to look at each other and judge each other by, these people coming across the stage were an absolute cross section of humanity. It wasn't like they all had the Hollywood model of physical perfection, of blonde hair, blue eyes, perfect teeth. No, every kind of person you can imagine. So clearly, it's not external factors which lead to success in real estate sales. There's something else going on. All of these people have something in common, but it's not what you see on the outside. And it's not what you could see through a microscope if you're able to drill down and look at their DNA. Both of those are external factors, and neither one of them account for the success of this wide swath of humanity. What is the difference? All of these people had a growth mindset. Every one of them said, yeah, I wasn't born with all these natural advantages, but I'm going to use what I got. And if there's a mountain in front of me, I'm going to climb over it. If there's a river in front of me, I'm going to cross over it. If there's a hole, I'm going to jump over it. Whatever it is, they're in their mind, they were not shackled to external factors determining their success. They said, I'm going to determine my success through my efforts, my hard work, my diligence, my commitment to sharpen my skills and get to the top. And it was that inner drive, that inner commitment, that growth mindset, which drove them to the top. So I want us to be introspective here for just a moment. I'm going to identify characteristics of both a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. And I don't want you to decide which one you are, that I'm a growth person or I'm a fixed person. Instead, what I want you to do is identify the characteristics of each that you have right now. Because the truth is, we're born with fixed mindsets. It is only by intentional effort and by environmental factors where we have very savvy parents, teachers, and coaches speaking the right words to us that cause us to adopt a growth mindset. I'll get more into that a little bit later in the presentation. But first of all, a growth mindset. I can learn anything I want to, anything. If I want to learn calculus, it might take me a while. I might be slower than the other students. I might have to work harder, study longer, but doggone it, if I want to learn something, I can. When I'm frustrated, I persevere. In other words, I don't give up easily because I know that frustration doesn't define me. Frustration's not the end of the story. Frustration's just part of the process. And so I'm going to persevere until I succeed. I want to challenge myself. I want to do hard things. I want to put myself in uncomfortable circumstances because that's when I have to get out of what I already know and grow as a person in my skills and understandings. When I fail, I learn. Somebody shared in class yesterday that if at first you don't succeed, you're on the right track, right? Because failure is part of the process of success. Tell me I try hard. In other words, don't tell me I'm smart. Don't tell me I'm brilliant. Don't tell me I'm good looking, but praise my effort to get where I want to go. If you succeed, I'm inspired. In other words, this is not a limited pie where your success comes at my expense. No, I can celebrate your success because there is unlimited opportunity for every one of us. It's not a closed sum game. There is abundance in this world. I'm going to go for mine and I'm going to celebrate yours. My effort and attitude determine everything. Again, I'm not ignoring the fact that some people start at a deficit, perhaps with a challenging environment or challenging physical circumstances, but effort and attitude overcome everything. That is a growth mindset. Now, by contrast, see if you can detect any of these attitudes in your mind. And this is not a judgmental exercise. This is a healing exercise, a therapeutic exercise, because we all have these in different levels, degrees, and the task is simply to identify them so that we can consciously reject them and remove them from our subconscious mind. So I'm either good at it or I'm not. In other words, I'm born with certain proclivities, certain abilities, certain talents, but if I do something I'm not good at, I realize, oh, I don't have the ability for that, and I move on. Very, very fixed and limited mindset. When I'm frustrated, I give up because apparently I've identified something that I wasn't born with a natural talent for, so I'm going to move on. I don't like to be challenged. The fixed mindset will acknowledge that it has certain talents, but when difficulties are exposed, when something is hard, then a fixed mindset says, well, maybe somebody who has talent in that area can do that. I'm going to go back over here to the thing that I'm comfortable with. Tell me I'm smart. That is a fixed mindset. Tell me that you recognize in me the innate abilities that I have derived from my genetic composition, not by effort, not by hard work, not by challenging myself. You just identify what I have naturally. Tell me I'm good at that. Tell me and I'll be content. If you succeed, I feel threatened. And I feel threatened because I realize I can't be good at everything. I can only be good at a few things that I was born with talent for. And so when I see people who have talents in other areas, I feel threatened by them because I know that it's impossible for me to develop proficiency at the highest level in that area. And if proficiency in that area is necessary for success in my career field, or to get the girl, or to get the guy, or to get whatever I'm going after, then it's hopeless for me. I feel threatened when others succeed, and my abilities determine everything. Not my effort, not my hard work, but my innate abilities, my natural smartness. But that natural smartness, the natural abilities are carefully defined and limited. They can't be grown. They cannot be increased. That is a fixed mindset. So I hope that every one of you have identified some characteristics of a growth mindset which we want to feed, and some elements of a fixed mindset in your mind that we want to starve. So let's go deeper. I'm going to touch on 5 questions very quickly to really bring this to a focus. What is a fixed mindset? How does it manifest in my life? How did I get it? Who has it? And how to move permanently into a growth mindset. So what is a fixed mindset? You've probably picked up on it as I have dropped hints along the way, breadcrumbs along the trail, but just here it is, plain and simple. A fixed mindset is the belief that the quality of your life is determined by forces outside your control, either nature or nurture, and that you are powerless to grow, change, or improve. The slogan or life motto of a fixed mindset is, it is what it is. We just have to accept our lot in life and not be frustrated or buy into any delusional beliefs that we can be something that we're not. So how does a fixed mindset manifest itself in your life? There's 5 key characteristics, and I think some of you are going to have a light bulb moment as we run through them. First of all, comparison. You constantly compare yourself to everyone to see where you rank. Now, in a very common way that many of you might be able to relate to, my wife tells me that when women walk into a room that's full of other women and men, that they're frequently looking around to identify the women who are more attractive than they are, and if they're with their husband, they want to make sure that their husband doesn't give those women any undue attention. Now, that's just a funny example, and I'm not saying that's true of every person, but perhaps you can relate to that at some level. But the fixed mindset is always comparing themselves to other people to see where they rank, how they stack up. You know, on a scale of 1 to 10, am I a 7 today? And compared to them, am I an 8 or am I a 4? Because it's a fixed mindset. It's a fixed sum game. It's not that we can all grow. We can all move from being a 1 to a 5 to a 7 to a 10 to a 10 plus. No, it's that whatever you're born with, that's where you're stuck. And so you're constantly trying to see where you fit in the pecking order. Secondly, prejudice. And when I use that word, I'm using it in its original literary sense of prejudging people based upon external factors. And those external factors could be their physical beauty. It could be how nicely they dress, what kind of car they drive, where they go out to eat, where they party, who they hang out with. But it's making judgments about people purely on external factors. That is the essence of prejudice. And I want to say that people in a fixed mindset don't just apply prejudicial attitudes towards other people, they apply them towards themselves. Well, nobody from my town has ever done anything. Nobody from my neighborhood has ever achieved any greatness in life. Nobody who's as short as I am, or as tall as I am, or have as dark skin as I do, or as light skin as I do. Nobody who speaks like I do. Nobody who has been through my experiences in life, nobody who's been through the trauma that I went through as a child has ever done anything with their life beyond survival. We apply the same measure that we use to other people to ourselves, and that's why it is so devastating to personal performance. Third, jealousy. Being resentful about the lucky breaks others have gotten. And that's how a fixed mindset looks at it, is lucky breaks. Either they were born with better looks, or better looks, or better intelligence, or they were born into a wealthy family, or they were born to good parents, or they got to go to good schools. Their father knew somebody at the bank who gave them that good job right out of college. This jealous and resentfulness of other people who have benefited from external factors that you were never given. And then number 4, boasting. Since you don't believe it's possible to get better for yourself, you crave validation for what you already are and have. People with a fixed mindset go out of their way to tell you how wonderful they are. These are some of the people that you see all over Facebook doing self-promotion, showing themselves in the best possible light, their toes dipped in the sand or their bikini body or whatever it is. They want you to think that their life is wonderful and that everything is good because they don't believe they can get better. So to feel good about themselves, they have to get external validation from other people that, well, what you have is really not too bad. So, and I'm not sharing this with you so that you'll be judgmental of other people. I'm sharing this with you so that you can see it in yourself. If you're craving external validation all the time, it means you're not comfortable in your own skin. You realize perhaps where you're at, but you don't realize that you can get better. You can change your outcomes. You can go to a better place. You can get smarter, faster, stronger, better looking, all these things, so that you don't have to get validation for where you're at right now. How about getting validation for the effort you're putting forth to get where you want to go? Number 5, depression. Hope is the wellspring of life, and those with a fixed mindset don't have hope. Every human being is struggling with failure or pain or heartache in some area of their life at all times. Nobody is living a perfect life. And you may see a Ken and Barbie couple and you think, my goodness, they got it all together. And what you don't know is that they're on the brink of divorce, or perhaps they've had 8 miscarriages and their hearts are broken because they don't have their own child. Or perhaps one of them was raised in an abusive childhood and then their parents passed away before there was any hope of reconciliation. You just don't know what people are going through at any given time. But you can be assured that everybody's going through something. If you have a growth mindset, you realize that there is a dawn after the darkness, that things can get better, that you can put yourself in a situation to make the best of the circumstances and then possibly change the circumstances. That you have more power than a person with a fixed mindset believes. In fact, let me just step into this for a moment. You actually have the ability to change your level of intelligence, and scientists have proven this. The older people who do Sudoku puzzles and that kind of thing, their brains actually carve new channels and synapses are formed, and the thinking and processing portions of their brain physically get bigger. Our thoughts absolutely impact biology. So I simply share that one example to say you have far more power than you might think to create a better outcome. There's no reason to sink into depression, depression, psychologists will tell you this, is just anger internalized, where you're angry at other people, you're angry at your circumstances, you're angry at yourself, and you turn that inward and just can't get over it. That's because the fixed mindset has no hope of things ever getting better. So I share this with you, again, not to make you judgmental of other people and not to make you depressed about your own circumstance, but to tell you these things do not have to be part of your life. You can shake them off by adopting proactively, intentionally, a growth mindset which says, hey, I may not have been given every advantage in life, but doggone it, I'm going to use what I have to get where I want to go. I'm going to meet new people. I'm going to sharpen my skills. I'm going to become a more giving, caring person. I'm going to develop in my character as well as in my professionalism, and I'm going to get where I want to go, both in my personal life and my professional life. That is a growth mindset. So where does the fixed mindset come from that we really want nothing to do with? Well, it comes from prejudice, no doubt. And I'll talk about this prejudging other people and prejudging ourselves based upon external factors. But surprisingly, it also comes from praise. I mentioned that most of us are born with a fixed mindset, and I don't necessarily mean genetically, but I mean, even if we're born to supportive, well-meaning parents and grandparents and teachers and coaches, they can say things to us about our abilities that set us up for failure. Let's get into this just a little bit deeper. Prejudice. Listen to these statements and tell me if you've ever heard them or ever identified with them. And perhaps somebody in your family have said these things. You've heard a comedian say these things. Perhaps you've seen them in music or movies. But here we go. Blondes are dumb. Asians are smart. Women aren't good at math and science. Jews are good with money, but they may try to cheat you. We even have a phrase for that. They'll Jew you down. The French are lazy. Italians are corrupt, the mafioso. Black people are good at sports, not so good at academics. People who like guns are hate-filled, narrow-minded neo-Nazis. And New Yorkers are rude. When I taught this class previously, everybody rejected all the statements except the last ones. I'm not going to argue with you about that one. Here's the point I want to make about prejudice. We adopt these attitudes unknowingly, unconsciously. We absorb them from our environment, from our parents, from our friends as very young children. We pick up these cues from our culture. And even when they're not correct, they're not in alignment with reality, we subconsciously identify with them. And the real heartache here is not that we judge other people externally, as terrible as that is, but when we turn the focus internally and we judge ourselves and we identify with these prejudicial statements and allow them to dictate our performance and level of success. And just listen, this is going to blow your mind. This is almost unbelievable, but it's been proven in study after study. When African American students are asked to indicate their race on a test form, they score lower on the test. When female students are asked to indicate their sex on a math or science test, they score lower on the test. What in the world is going on here? African Americans who should know of their abilities, their intelligence, their academic prowess, the very act of reminding them just before they take a test, oh, you're African American, you're not good at academics, they have internalized that belief and it lowers their scores. And females who've been told, hey, you might be good at home ec, you might be good at macrame, but you don't have a future in math or science, just being reminded that they are a female causes them to doubt themselves. They lose confidence and score lower on a test. That is the detrimental impact of prejudice internalized. Let's talk about praise. The road to hell is paved with good intentions, and many of us have adopted a fixed mindset because we had very well-intentioned parents, teachers, and coaches who praised us for fixed external qualities. And here's some of these expressions. You're smart like your father. You get your good looks from your mother. You're gifted and talented. You're good at math. You have a knack for science. You're the best athlete on the team. You're going to win a Nobel Prize. You could be president someday. Now, these are statements made by people who are trying to compliment and encourage and build up young children. But what's the problem with them? All this praise is based upon external factors. Either these kids got their good looks or their smarts through their DNA, or they're surrounded by a supportive environment that's helped them to be good at math or be gifted and talented, but all of them are external. None of these have to do with effort, with hard work, with an intention to get better. And study after study has shown that children, again, just like the previous slide, who go in to take standardized tests, if they're told right before the test, you're really good at math, and it's a math test, they'll do fine as long as it's easy. But if there are harder questions than what they're capable of answering, or they're just a higher level of difficulty, the moment those students who believe they're good at math encounter difficulty, they shrink back. They have a fixed mindset. Well, they said I'm good at math, and sure enough, I did these easy problems, but these hard ones, that must be beyond my ability. They take these same students, well, different group of students, but similar aptitude level, just before they take a math test, and they say, you know what? You're really good at figuring out problems. We've noticed that you work really hard and you persevere at figuring things out until you get the right answer. Then they give them the same test, and these students at the similar aptitude levels score much, much higher. Praise for natural ability, for fixed qualities, for external factors is detrimental to children. But praise for effort, for hard work, for perseverance, it's basically encouraging a growth mindset, and it sets them up for success at every level. Now let's get to our industry, the fixed mindset from real estate agents. And all these statements on this page, I have heard at least once from a real estate agent, and many of them I hear all the time. Here we go. Nobody will work with me because I wasn't born in this country. I can never be a top producer because English isn't my native language. I'm too honest to be a good salesperson. Yes, I've actually heard that. My former coworkers won't use me because they still think of me as a teacher, an oil and gas executive, a pipe fitter, a manager, or whatever it was that you did in your previous career. I can't make a living from my sphere of influence because I only know 10 people and they don't own homes. Boy, I've heard that one so many times. I'm not a smooth talker like you, Frank. Therefore, I can't ever be successful in real estate. I don't want my friends thinking that I'm just trying to sell them something. I don't want to abuse the relationship, so I'm not going to reach out to my sphere of influence and proactively offer to help them with their real estate needs. In my previous job, I had people who did these things for me. In other words, I don't want to build a database. I don't want to create a social media campaign. I don't want to have to go door to door in my neighborhood. I've always had people do these things, or I'm just not good with technology. In other words, I'm a failure and there's nothing I can do about it. I'm doomed to mediocrity. My lack of natural abilities and unfavorable circumstances have combined to sabotage any possibilities of success. Now, can you relate to that in any way? Does that describe you at any point on your timeline? That may be where you're at today. But I just want to say unequivocally, you do not have to stay there. The reason we are doing this class should give you hope in itself. I wouldn't be taking your time, your precious time, to invest in this class if I thought you were stuck in a fixed mindset and couldn't come out of it. Listen to what a growth mindset says. And these are beliefs that you can very proactively, consciously adopt, and they will absolutely transform your life. I may not know it, but I can learn it. There might be people smarter than me, but nobody's going to outwork me. I just moved here and don't know anybody, but I'm going to join a church, a synagogue, a temple, a fitness club, and a community group and have 100 new best friends a month from now. I may not have Hollywood looks, but I've got a sparkling personality. I may not have money, but I'm going to work nights until I build my real estate career. I may take on 2 or 3 jobs, and then the limited time that I have available to focus on my real estate activities, I'm going to engage in the most dollar productive activities I can, focusing on lead generation and lead conversion. I don't understand this business, but I'm going to find a coach who does. I hate technology, but I'm going to invest 15 minutes a day to learn it. I've failed in the past, but have learned from every failure, and now I'm stronger than ever. If I can't run, I'll walk. If I can't walk, I'll crawl, but one way or another, I'm going to get to the top. I just got my license, but baby, here I come. These are the attitudes of those who get to the top. And there's nothing in these statements that really tell you what adversities these agents are facing, what hurdles they have had to overcome, either childhood experiences or even adult experiences, rejection and failure and betrayal. All of those things are part of the human experience. But the person with the growth mindset says, doggone it, it doesn't matter. I don't care. I'm going to learn from all of those things. I'm going to get smarter. I'm going to get stronger. And I'm going to use them as fuel to get me where I'm going. Now, if that's what you want, if you want to adopt that mindset, a mindset that will drive positive feelings and productive behavior, it is absolutely possible to do it. And that's what I want to wrap up this session with, is to share with you these components of building a growth mindset. A growth mindset is based upon the belief that your basic qualities are things you can cultivate, you can grow, you can increase, you can get more of these things through, and here are the three things, through your efforts, your strategies, and help from others. Let's dig into each one of these. Efforts. Natural talent may give you a head start, but focused effort over time always wins. Remember the turtle, not as fast as the hare, just plodding along, but the hare was so focused on his natural talents, he was so far ahead in the race, he took a nap. The turtle just kept plodding along. He would not give up, and he won the race. I hear people say to me all the time, I don't want to work hard, I want to work smart. And I always laugh when I hear that, because I know by personal experience the road to smart work is paved with hard work. And I put on the slide 14 hours a day. What that means is, when I was involved in real estate sales, and I was always doing it part-time because I was a full-time business coach or regional executive when I was selling, I knew that my limit was 14 hours a day. And I knew that because very consistently at the 14-hour mark, my eyes would go blurry, my brain would go fuzzy. And even if I tried to continue putting in that listing or running comps or inputting data into my database, I just couldn't do it. My mind and eyes and fingers would no longer work. So I knew my limit, 14 hours a day. Practice, practice, practice with a specific intent to get better. That is the key to the highest levels of productivity and performance in any area of life. And I put a photograph of Michael Jordan on the slide. Most people say that Michael Jordan was the greatest basketball player of all time, and we tend to think it was because of his natural abilities. But Michael Jordan will tell you, and his peers would tell you, and his coach would tell you, that Michael Jordan's success came because he worked harder than everybody else on the team. He put in the time and the hours. He put in the effort that drove his natural talent to the highest possible levels. Jeffrey Colvin wrote a book entitled Talent is Overrated. I read it the first time years ago. I go back to it again and again and again. What Jeff Colvin says, that it takes about 10,000 hours of focused practice or about 5 years of effort to achieve world-class proficiency in any endeavor. And that doesn't matter if you're talking about educational pursuits, academia, professionalism, real estate, sales, athletics, about 5 years. Now, let me just ask you a quick question. Are you going to be a real estate professional 5 years from now? Are you still going to be in this industry in 5 years? If so, then you're going to put about 10,000 hours into this business over the next 5 years. If that's the case, why not take those 10,000 hours and use them with a specific intent to get better? Don't just repeat the same thing that you're doing over and over again, but constantly challenge every aspect of your business to see how it can get better. How can I improve my listing conversation, my marketing materials, my social media campaigns? Where can I learn from those who are getting better results than I am? And you're just constantly improving. That's what focused practice means. It's practicing with a specific intent to get better. And if that's the approach you take to your business, you will get better. Chuck Yeager, who's probably the most famous test pilot of all time, set more speed records than just about any other pilot. He said this: there is no such thing as a natural born pilot. Whatever my aptitude or talents, becoming a proficient pilot was hard work, really a lifetime's learning experience. The best pilots fly more than others. That's why they're the best. It's well known in the aeronautical world that Israeli pilots, fighter pilots, are the best in the world. Even though there are other military services that are flying the identical plane, and we as Americans like to think that we always have the best of the best, everyone acknowledges the Israeli pilots are the best. Why is that? Are they born that way? Is it genetic? Is it their hand-eye coordination? No, it's exactly what Chuck Yeager just said. They spend more hours training, more hours in the cockpit than pilots with any other Air Force in the world, and that's why they're the best. People tend to think that, well, pilots fly, that's what they do. No, it's extremely expensive to keep a fighter or pilot in the air. It's tens of thousands of dollars per hour of flight time. But the Israelis invest in that. They get their pilots in the seat, and that's why they're the best. Hours and hours and hours of focused practice with the intent to get better. Listen to this quote by Stephen King: talent is cheaper than table salt. What separates the talented individual from the successful one is a lot of hard work. Well, there you go, from a guy who knows what it is to crank out top-selling books year after year after year. The fixed mindset says there's no use in trying. There's people more talented than I am, people with better opportunities than I have. The growth mindset says I can work my way to the top. Even if they're more talented, I'll have a day's work done before they're out of bed. And that's just my warm-up act. Let's talk about strategies. And I think this is probably a critical piece that most agents listening to this presentation really need to focus on. What I see happening all the time is that agents feel like they need to find some mythical unicorn lead generation conversion strategy that doesn't require them to do any hard work or sharpen their sales skills or meet with people. And so they'll run around attending every conference, paying coaches exorbitant amounts of money, buying books, watching YouTube videos, when here's the truth: there are no secrets in real estate. The top producing agents are doing what top producers have always done: generate leads and convert leads, and they do it from the primary sources of business: your sphere of influence, your geo farm, perhaps a demographic farm, converting some online leads, but focusing on the core sources in the real estate business. I see agents squandering their money, their time, and ultimately their career chasing these things that don't exist. What I want to share with you is, if you want to accelerate your success in real estate, just do what we teach you. Incorporate the proven strategies, the bread and butter, the meat and potatoes strategies that we teach you in Abbey University. And I guarantee you can make over $1 million a year. You can make 100 grand from your sphere of influence, 100 from your geo farm. It's unlimited the money you can make with our online lead strategies. You don't need to go chasing everything else, buying this program and that database. We are giving you the tools, the technologies, and the training to succeed at multiple levels from where you are right now. So my encouragement is, at least make your first million using what we teach you. And then if your aspirations go beyond that, then go chase all these fairy tales somewhere else. Who knows, you may come across something, but at least get your first million in the bank, your first million every year, before you go chasing some of these real estate fantasies. Strategies are absolutely critical. And I just want to make one more comment on this, because this was actually brought to my attention yesterday by an agent who shared with me all that she is doing to generate business. And she's frustrated, and she rattled off the sources that she's using. And she's using open houses and online marketing and different things like this that are kind of some of the core sources But there's a difference between a source of business and the strategy that you're using within that source. And just give you a quick example. Every agent is going to tell you that they market to their sphere of influence. And that is the number one foundational source of business. But when I go deeper with agents and I say, well, tell me what your strategy is for your sphere of influence, I'll often hear things like, well, I write a handwritten Christmas card to all my clients every year. And then they smile and sit back. I'm like, oh, well, that's a good start. That's awesome, but what else? And I quickly discover there's not much else. So they've identified a great source of business, sphere of influence, but their strategy is inadequate. What I'm trying to say to you as clearly and powerfully as I can is strategy matters. And the strategies that we teach work. They are proven to work over and over and over. So identify your core sources. We can help you with that. But then focus, more importantly, on the strategy within each source that will be sufficient to extract the required amount of business demanded by your business plan. Then finally, help from others. Please don't feel like you need to be a lone ranger in this business. Real estate sales tends to be a lonely business anyway. But just trust me, others have already figured this out. A lot of them are on our leadership team at Abbey Realty. Learn from their experience, not yours. I tell agents all the time, never spend hours on a Saturday afternoon trying to figure something out in this business when you can call me or call one of our mentors or coaches or leaders and in 5 minutes get your answer. Leverage the experience, the talents, the insights and perspectives of other people, and you can dramatically accelerate your success. So get a mentor, get a coach, get a mastermind group. Leverage that mind trust. That's literally what a mastermind group is. The sum is greater than the parts. Everybody brings something, but when you add it together, it's even bigger than what the individual sum of the parts were. This is what will get you to the next level. I've shared this experience from my own sales background many times. When I started in this business, again, part-time real estate sales, I started clicking off one sale a month, pretty much like clockwork. Was 8 months in, I had 8 closed sales. I felt like at that point I could chew gum and walk at the same time. In other words, I was ready to start doing 2 transactions a month. So I called together a mastermind group. And just in the process of preparing for that first mastermind retreat, I had a revelation insight that I implemented in my business. And it immediately took me to 3 transactions a month. And I mean like overnight. Went from 1 to 3 overnight with just one insight. It was a strategy insight, and it came while preparing to meet with this mastermind group and some homework assignments that I had given to everybody. So again, you can make it on your own if you're highly talented and you're in a supportive environment, but you will accelerate your success if you have this mindset of it's not all about me, it's not a limited pie, I don't have to keep my secrets to myself, but I'm going to share freely and I'm going to receive freely from other people. That's how top producers get to the top. Well, the bottom line of everything that I want to share with you is that all of these strategies and hard work and effort and getting help from others are absolutely impossible if you don't open your mind to the possibility of I can get better, I can grow, I can sharpen my skills, my past does not define me, the external factors in my world don't limit me, but I am the one who is going to create my success. I'm going to determine what my destiny is, and I have the ability to grow, to get smarter, stronger, better looking, adopt better strategies, and get where I want to go. It's absolutely possible. Participating in this class is the first step on the journey. I appreciate so much you being here. If I can ever do anything to help you take that next step, let me know. Let's go there together.